Have you ever wondered why, despite working 40 hours a week, your bank account is empty at the end of the month? Why your parents, on a normal salary, could buy a house and a car, while today you struggle to pay rent and buy groceries? You're not crazy, and you're not alone. We analysed economic data from across the European Union and focused on the median salary, which, more than the mean, lets us see what citizens actually earn. And the math is clear. The system is broken. In many European countries, the median salary is literally no longer enough to cover the cost of living if you rent. Today, we'll show you the ranking of the 10 worst EU countries where working has become a trap. But beware, if you own your home, the picture changes. Stay until the end because we'll reveal how the ranking flips when rent is excluded. You'll see paradises turn into hells and vice versa. And if you want a video that ranks all European nations and the USA by median salary, write salary in the comments. Welcome to Amazing Europe. Number 10. Czech Republic. Czechia is a victim of its own success. For 30 years it was Germany's low-cost factory. Unemployment near zero, but wages kept artificially low to favour exports. The problem is that housing prices didn't track local wages. They followed international capital. Here, bureaucracy is suffocating. Getting a building permit takes years, blocking the supply of homes while speculation devoured everything. Result? The math is merciless. Today, the median net salary in Prague stands at about €1,260. But between rent for a one-bedroom on the outskirts and living expenses, you need €1,360. You're €100 in the red before you even start living. Czechia holds the unfortunate European record. It takes 15 full years' salary to buy a house. A mirage. So how do people survive? By extreme adaptation. Young people stay with their parents until they're 35, not out of laziness, but out of mathematical necessity. And the final humiliation? Grocery tourism. At weekends, the motorways to Poland are full of Czechs heading across the border to stock up on food, where it costs 40% less. In Czechia, the cost of living is high. If rent were excluded, this country would rank 12th, so it would fall just outside our top 10. In Czechia, people work at German pace, pay Western-level rents, but are forced to shop abroad to make ends meet. Number 9. Lithuania. Forget for a moment the brochures about the Baltic Tiger and the startup paradise. That's the showcase for investors. For those who actually live there, the tiger bites, and it bites hard. Lithuania's problem is structural. It's a small open economy that imports almost everything it consumes. When inflation hit Europe, here it didn't arrive as a wave, but as a tsunami. Energy and food prices aligned with Scandinavian levels at lightning speed, while wages stayed anchored to the east. Vilnius has become a two-speed city, a playground for fintech programmers, and a survival zone for nurses, police officers, and blue-collar workers. The figures are a rude awakening. The median net salary stops at €1,027. But between rent and the cost of living, you need €1,181 to make ends meet. Every single month, the average worker starts with a €150 hole in their budget. Here, the number one enemy, after the landlord, is thermal terror. A large share of the population still lives in Soviet-era apartment blocks with virtually no insulation, where heating during the long Baltic winters costs as much as a second month's rent. How do they survive? Often thanks to the shadow economy. While official statistics show red, a huge slice of services is paid under the table, in cash. In Lithuania, to survive the prices of the future, people are forced to use the methods of the past. Number 8. Croatia. Croatia is the new face of the Eurozone. Everyone dreams of a holiday in Split or Dubrovnik, right? But what for you? Tourists' paradise has become, for residents, the hell of apartmanizacija. It's the local term for a brutal phenomenon, the mass conversion of residential homes into tourist rentals. Owner's calculation is cynical but correct. Why rent to a local family for €600 a month when you can charge €200 a night to a tourist? Result? Croats have literally been driven out of their cities. Add to that the Euro shock. Since 2023, the prices of bread and coffee have magically rounded up to German levels. while wages have remained firmly Balkan. The figures are damning. The median net salary is only €1,029. But to cover rent and the cost of living, you now need €1,259. We're facing a monthly shortfall of over €200. The average citizen today is competing in the supermarket with tourists who earn 3 times as much. How do they survive? With a double life. Many work 14 hours a day in summer, with no days off, to accumulate a cash nest egg used solely to cover budget gaps during the winter. Croatia has become Europe's beach, but the price to pay has been turning its citizens into poor guests in their own homes. Number 7. Poland. In 7th place is Poland, the nation every financial paper calls the new engine of Europe. You see Warsaw's skyscrapers and think of an economic boom? Look closer. Behind those gleaming glass facades hides a housing crisis so grotesque it has its own name. Patoduelo Perka. It's the locals' term for the pathology of development. Greedy builders selling 15 square metre microflats, often with windows facing walls, at Parisian luxury prices. The government poured fuel on the fire, offering subsidised mortgages at 2% to help young people. The result? A textbook disaster. Demand exploded, supply stayed the same, and house prices shot up by 30% in a year. The 2026 numbers dismantle the miracle narrative. The median net salary is just €993. But to cover rent and life in now westernised cities, you need €1,263. The ratio is 0.79. The average Polish worker is poor despite living in a fast-running economy. The national survival strategy has a curious name. Słoiki, the jars. It's the nickname given to the thousands of young workers who every weekend flee the expensive cities to return to their parents in the countryside, coming back on Sunday night with suitcases full of jars of home-cooked food. If the workforce of a European capital depends, at least in part, on grandma's soup to make ends meet, perhaps it isn't an economic miracle. It's a mirage. Number 6. Greece. If you read the financial press, they'll tell you that in Greece not only is the crisis over, but GDP is booming, so much so that some experts call it Europe's great economic miracle. But open a Greek family's fridge and you'll find it empty. Along with Italy, Greece is the only country in the European Union where real household income has fallen over the past 20 years. Austerity measures saved the banks but killed purchasing power. While wages were frozen, prices aligned with Northern Europe, creating what I call the feta paradox. Today, often, Greek yogurt costs less in a London supermarket than it does a stone's throw from the Parthenon. Add to that the golden visas, with which the government sold off entire neighbourhoods to foreign investors, turning Athens into a giant Airbnb inaccessible to locals. Here's the 2026 tally. The median net salary is stuck at €904. But between rent and the shopping basket, you need €1,161 to live. The ratio is 0.78. Every month, a Greek worker starts with an automatic debt of €250. It's a monthly technical bankruptcy. How do they avoid exploding? Thanks in part, but not only, to grandparents. In a tragic role reversal, elderly pensions, albeit reduced, have become the real welfare state. Entire families of poor young workers eat and pay the bills thanks to the pension check of an octogenarian relative. In Greece, the future survives only by cannibalising the past. Number 5. Portugal. They told you it's the new California of Europe, right? Sun, surf and startups. All true, but only if you earn a foreign salary. For locals, the mass arrival of digital nomads and golden retirees, drawn in by years of zero taxation, has turned the housing market into a social meat grinder. Landlords have adjusted prices to an American wallet, completely ignoring the fact that Portuguese wages are among the lowest in the West. The social consequence is that at 35, professionals in Lisbon and Porto don't rent apartments. They rent rooms. This market has exploded, with single rooms costing €600 being shared not only by students, but by adults. Living with strangers is the norm for the middle class, not just for students. The 2026 figures leave no escape. The median net salary is €1,054, but including rent, you need €1,392 to live. The ratio is 0.76. We're looking at one of the widest gaps on the continent, but beware, because here comes the crucial twist. If we remove rent from the equation, Portugal drops out of the top 10 and slides to 11th place, suddenly becoming more livable. With a home ownership rate approaching 78%, the country is split exactly in two: an older majority that owns its home and enjoys the low cost of living, and a young minority, many of whom are condemned to renting, for whom the future is simply unsustainable. Number 4. Romania. Romania too has been making headlines in recent years. It's described as one of Europe's most dynamic economies, and more than a few have called it the Silicon Valley of the East. But this country is becoming the perfect example of wild capitalism. Here there's an unbridgeable abyss between a narrow elite driving supercars and the masses counting cents for heating. The culprit? A punitive tax system that takes almost 45% of wages even from the lowest incomes, while cities like Cluj and Bucharest now have housing and food prices comparable to Rome or Berlin. The result is feudal inequality. The 2026 data are ruthless. The median net salary is just €653. But between rent and survival, you need €907. The ratio collapses to 0.72. It's a mathematical sentence. Survival is also supported by food and supplies sent from home. Every weekend, thousands of young people return to their parents in the countryside to fill their suitcases with food, because the city supermarket has become an unaffordable luxury. But the first thing Romanians are forced to resort to is undeclared work. Consider that the shadow economy accounts for 34.2% of Romania's entire GDP. You might object, but everyone in Romania owns a home. That's true. With over 95%, it has one of the highest home ownership rates in Europe. But here's the hidden tragedy. Even if we remove rent from the equation, Romania remains in third place among the worst. The situation for a Romanian with a fully paid-off home obviously improves, but when compared with other European Union nations, it still sits at the bottom of the ranking. Number 3. Bulgaria. We are not talking about a temporary economic crisis here, but a demographic tragedy. Bulgaria is one of the countries with the fastest population decline in the world. It is not in crisis, it is slowly disappearing. The causes are a lethal cocktail: corruption among the highest in the European Union, which chokes off investment, an economy controlled by post-communist oligarchs, and a mass exodus of the most qualified young people. Those who remain face third world wages and European prices. Since January 2026, with the adoption of the euro, there is fear that prices will explode as they did in Croatia, delivering the coup de grace. The numbers are a verdict. The median net salary is just €651, the lowest in the Union. But to rent a studio apartment and pay the bills, you need €911. The ratio is 0.71. Working full-time does not even guarantee a third of stability. How do they survive? By returning to the past. In the countryside, the economy is almost subsistence. Food is not bought, it is grown in the family vegetable plot, and people wait for the true Bulgarian welfare. The €200 sent each month by a child who emigrated to Germany. Be warned, because as with Romania, the problem runs deep. Almost all Bulgarians live in owner-occupied homes, some inherited, some with a mortgage to pay. But even if we gave every Bulgarian a free house, the country would remain among the poorest in Europe. Wages are too low even for the supermarket. Number 2. Slovakia. Do not be fooled by Bratislava's skyscrapers or the Jaguar factories. Slovakia is the perfect example of what happens when you put an Eastern salary inside a Western cost of living. The main cause, shared by many analysts, was the premature adoption of the euro. Unlike neighbouring Czechia or Poland, which kept their currencies as shock absorbers, Slovakia pegged its fragile economy to Germany's rigid framework as early as 2009. It imported the prices of nearby wealthy Vienna, but its wages stayed tied to the mono industry of car manufacturing. Slovakia is the world's largest car producer per capita, but that completely binds its economy to foreign multinationals, who therefore call the shots. The result is a social disaster. The 2026 figures are catastrophic. The median net salary is only €848, but to survive while renting, you need €1,244. With a ratio of 0.68, the average worker faces a shortfall of almost €400 every month. It is mathematically unsustainable. The consequences are dramatic. The health system is collapsing because of the brain drain. A Slovak doctor can earn 3 times as much by taking an hour-long train to work in Vienna. Why should they stay? And for those who remain, the problem is visible on the streets, with one of the highest homelessness rates in Europe. The only real survival strategy is daily labour migration. Slovakia is no longer a country, it has become Vienna's low-cost bedroom. Before we reveal number 1 and show the ranking excluding housing, if you found this video informative, please support our project with a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you don't miss our new videos. And if you want a video that ranks all European nations and the USA by median salary, write salary in the comments. Number 1. Hungary. The country with the worst wage to cost of living ratio in the entire European Union is Hungary. Here, the crisis is not a wave, it's a perfect storm hitting from 3 fronts. First, inflation. Hungary has suffered some of the highest price increases in Europe, with peaks exceeding 25%, and food has become a luxury for many. Second, a weak national currency, the forint, which has sent the cost of all imported goods skywards. Third, a real estate bubble in Budapest, which has turned the city into an open-air film set for international productions and a playground for tourists, with prices unaffordable for residents. The 2026 figures are a verdict. The median net salary stands at €707, one of the lowest in the EU. But to cover rent and basic expenses, you need €1,049. The ratio collapses to 0.67. Wages cover only 2/3 of life. This economic pressure is fueling an unprecedented brain drain and labour exodus, emptying out crucial sectors such as healthcare. How do citizens survive? Often with a second undeclared job, or by growing vegetables if they live in rural areas. Many cross the border every day to work in Austria, the only real way out. And beware, because the problem runs deep. Even if we gave every Hungarian a free house, the country would still top this sad ranking. Wages are so low that even grocery shopping and paying the bills leaves almost no room for savings. However, in many of the countries we've seen, the vast majority of people do not pay rent because they own their home. So here's how the ranking would look if housing were excluded. As you can see, the map of hardship changes, but not radically. 2 nations leave the red zone, Portugal and Czechia. This reveals a crucial truth. Their problem is almost exclusively a housing issue. In Lisbon and Prague, speculation has created an unsustainable bubble, but everyday living costs, such as groceries or transport, are still manageable. If you inherited grandma's house in these countries, you'd be fine. But their place is taken by 2 far more worrying new entries, Latvia and Estonia. Their presence tells us the problem is deeper and structural. In the Baltic states, inflation on consumer goods and energy has been so brutal that even if the state gave you a house, you would struggle to make ends meet. There, the enemy is not just the landlord, but also the supermarket receipt. Incidentally, taking housing into account, these countries would have occupied, respectively, the 11th and 12th places, so not enviable positions. This new ranking therefore distinguishes between those who have a housing crisis and those who have a real wage crisis, a fundamental difference the media often ignore. If you want to know the situation in your country, write it below. And if you want a video that ranks all European nations and the USA by median salary, write salary in the comments. Undeclared work is often considered the only escape route by inhabitants of these nations. We therefore recommend you watch this video, where we analyse the 10 European countries with the largest shadow economies. That's it for this video. See you next time.